Red wine stained her uniform. A mop was thrust into her hands, and laughter echoed as she was addressed as merely help and instructed to remain unseen. She was treated with disdain, as though her presence diminished the refined atmosphere of the elite, disregarded without recognition of her name, face, or prospects. However, what they were unaware of, what no one anticipated, was that the maid they ridiculed had quietly accumulated every secret, every deception, every scandal they attempted to conceal. Their empire crumbled unexpectedly. The estate exuded opulence. Marble floors extended seemingly without end, chandeliers shimmered with gold, and walls displayed paintings that spoke of inherited wealth. The Carlyles presided over it all, a family entrenched in politics and business, their names synonymous with influence. Vivian entered as their new housemaid, a woman in her 30s, her dark hair pulled back, her plain gray uniform unremarkable. She possessed beauty, with striking cheekbones and deep brown eyes, yet it went unnoticed. To them, she was a shadow, moving quietly through their world. Her employment began 6 months prior, and the experience was harsh from the outset. Victoria Carlyle, the lady of the house, moved about in silk robes, issuing commands as if Vivian were a machine. "Scrub the foyer again. Those tiles aren't gleaming," she would say even when they appeared spotless. Her daughter, Brooke, was even more difficult, with sharp heels and a sharper tongue, 25 years old and exhibiting a sense of entitlement. "Don't touch my bags. You'll smudge them," she would hiss, pushing past Vivian as if she were a piece of furniture. The guests were no better. Senators, CEOs, individuals with private jets, scarcely giving her a look as they requested new drinks or expressed dissatisfaction with the silverware's cleanliness. Vivian endured it all, lowering her head, speaking quietly, and keeping her hands still. This continued, day after day, in a cycle of fetching, cleaning, and bowing. Victoria once required her to remake a 5-course dinner arrangement because a napkin was slightly misaligned. Brooke yelled when Vivian inadvertently brushed against her purse. "I'm fortunate I don't dismiss you personally." The employees speculated she wouldn't remain. However, Vivian persevered, her composure unwavering, her silence a subtle strength unnoticed by many. One afternoon, Brooke abruptly took a tray of crystal glasses from Vivian's grasp. The fragile stems broke on the marble floor, seemingly intended to observe her reaction. "Oops, too heavy for you?" Brooke remarked, her heels tapping as she laughed, the shattering sound resonating throughout the foyer. Sharp fragments of glass sliced into Vivian's palms as she knelt to clean, blood mingling with the debris. But no apology emerged, only Victoria's harsh voice from the stairs. "You will pay for that clumsy fool." Vivian remained silent, her hands steady despite the pain, their harshness a whip striking across her lowered head. She polished their world while they walked over her, unnoticed unless they needed something or someone to mistreat. One evening, Victoria dumped a bucket of soapy water over Vivian's head in front of a group of elite guests relaxing in the parlor, the suds soaking her uniform and dripping onto the rug. "That's what you get for missing a spot," Victoria said, her silk robe swishing as the room erupted in laughter, a senator slapping his knee. "She's a drowned rat now." Brooke smirked, snapping a photo. "Perfect for the help scrapbook." Shivering and soaked, Vivian stood, wiping her face with a deliberate motion, ignoring their taunts as she endured them silently. Soon after, the party arrived. The Carlyle mansion shone that night, filled with the city's most prominent figures. Tuxedos, elegant gowns, and diamonds glittered like constellations. Vivian moved through the gathering, carrying a tray and pouring wine with practiced care. The atmosphere vibrated with business discussions and joyful sounds, the Carlyle family presiding over the event. As she refilled a glass, her elbow brushed against a woman, a prominent businesswoman named Diane Kessler. She was strikingly dressed, with blonde hair and a dress valued at $20,000. During the party, a plate of hors d'oeuvres was pushed into Vivian's chest by Diane. Immediately preceding the wine spill, the greasy appetizer stained her gray dress as the crowd murmured, "Carry it right or don't bother," Diane exclaimed, her blonde hair swaying as she turned to her companions. "She's a walking disaster. Look at her." Victoria advanced, her voice sharp. Clean yourself up. You're a disgrace. Brooke laughed derisively. She's the stain now. Vivian calmly removed crumbs, her silence a defense against their harsh amusement, feeling the room's attention focused on her. Red wine spread across the white silk, creating a noticeable mark. The atmosphere shifted, and then Diane spoke forcefully. People like you don't belong in a place like this. Her voice resonated, silencing the surrounding noise. All eyes turned to her. An accident had occurred. Vivian stood there, tray steady, wine dripping to the floor, her face blank. Victoria approached quickly, her heels clicking sharply. What happened? You've caused a scene in front of everyone, she exclaimed, her voice carrying throughout the room. Brooke observed with a slight smile, her arms crossed. She's made a mess. Remove her. Diane gestured to her damaged dress. I should take legal action against you for this. The onlookers responded with laughter, sharp intakes of breath, and whispers of how did she get in here. Following the wine spill, Richard threw a wad of cash at Vivian's face, the bills slapping her cheek as he shouted from across the room. That's for the dress. Now get lost. The crowd cheered, a woman in pearls shouting, pay up, maid. While Brooke clapped, she declared, she's worth less than that. Victoria sneered, urging, take it and crawl out. You've ruined enough. Vivian caught the money midair, her fingers steady, her brown eyes unblinking, the laughter of the onlookers feeling like a hammer pounding her down. She remained steadfast, simply tucking it into her apron and continuing to clean. Vivian did not react, only bending to address the spill. Her silence resonated more powerfully than their comments. The shame was intense. A senator laughed, remarking, guess they're hiring off the street now. A woman adorned with pearls whispered, she's got no business here. Victoria seized Vivian's arm, pulling her towards the kitchen. You're finished for tonight. Remain out of view, she hissed, pushing her through the door. Following the initial confrontation, Brooke stated, don't come back until you understand your place. A wave of mocking laughter trailed her, emanating from individuals who had never performed manual labor. As the party concluded, Victoria pressed a mop into Vivian's hands, her voice sharp as she directed her towards the spill. Clean it up, you're inadequate. For once, do something correctly. Guess. A CEO commented, she's not even competent at that. Simultaneously, Brooke positioned the mop bucket nearer, soaking Vivian's legs. Diane gave a scornful smile. Should have let her go a long time ago. Disgraceful. Vivian held the mop tightly, water collecting near her feet, her uniform stained with wine and grease, but she didn't react, simply beginning to clean. Their animosity, a burden she bore silently. Vivian remained in the dimness, drying her hands, her gaze unwavering, without tears or complaint. Afterward, as the party concluded and the mansion grew quiet, Vivian went to a small room located near the east wing. She secured the door, retrieved a burner phone from her apron pocket, and initiated a call. Her tone altered, becoming subdued, precise, and authoritative. The moment is at hand. Transfer the assets by tomorrow. A map adorned the wall with a red thread connecting various entities. Carlyle Holdings, Novalink, offshore banks. She followed a path with her fingertip, her expression distant, analytical. This was no ordinary hiding place. It was a strategic command center. She wasn't merely Vivian, the insignificant one. She was something else altogether. The following morning, the Carlyles convened in the oak-paneled study. Victoria, Brooke, and Patriarch Richard were present, all in crisp suits and with smug grins. Richard puffed a cigar. Novalink is our golden ticket, he stated. $500 million is at stake, and they're begging for us. Victoria nodded in agreement. We'll secure the deal today. Our most significant move yet. Brooke tossed her hair. I'll be leading that boardroom shortly. Unbeknownst to them, Vivian was in the adjacent room, listening intently near the wall. They were unaware that Novalink wasn't a far-off acquisition. It belonged to her. Operating under a legal alias, she had constructed it from nothing. A Southeast Asian empire valued at billions, 10 times the Carlyle fortune. She controlled the game they believed they were participating in. Her narrative was more complex, more troubling. 20 years prior, her father, Charles Lancaster, worked as a journalist. He was persistent, investigating the Carlyles' illicit dealings. Corruption, money laundering, and bribes were exposed. He possessed comprehensive evidence. Subsequently, an incident occurred, a car crash on a rainy night. The brakes had been tampered with. There were no witnesses. Vivian was 13 years old, observing her mother, who worked as a Carlyle maid, fall apart when she was dismissed. Sorrow consumed her mom a year later, leaving Vivian an orphan, her family broken by the Carlyles' actions. She made a vow then in that bleak orphanage to expose them, not through outbursts but through quiet determination. There was further injustice. The Carlyles enjoyed their public relations displays, taking in Mia, a 6-year-old orphan, and showcasing her at events as a symbol of their generosity. "Our angel," Victoria said to the press, all manufactured tears and staged photographs. The team was unaware that Mia was Vivian's niece, the daughter of her sister, Lily, who had also been employed by them. Lily had died unexpectedly, a fall down the mansion stairs. There was no formal inquiry. Vivian accepted the position of maid with a single purpose: to remain nearby, to protect Mia from those responsible for her mother's death. Each task, from cleaning shelves to serving drinks, brought her closer to fulfilling that commitment. Time passed, and the atmosphere grew strained. Richard finalized the Nova Link documentation, his expression conveying satisfaction. Vivian continued with her customary tasks: cleaning, assisting, and observing. Then Victoria spotted her close to Mia's room, her expression wary. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You're dismissed. Leave immediately." Victoria attempted to seize her phone, initiating a call to security. "Have her removed now." 2 guards entered the room, but rather than apprehending Vivian, they paused, their heads lowered. "We await your command, ma'am," one stated, his voice resolute. Victoria's hand halted in mid-motion, her complexion paling. Vivian had systematically substituted each guard over several months. After 6 years of meticulous preparation, her strategy was nearing completion. The following evening, the Carlyles held a press gala, with cameras flashing and reporters eagerly discussing the event, creating a setting for their anticipated triumph. Richard addressed the audience. "Our family's legacy is unparalleled. Business, charity, leadership." The crowd responded with applause and smiles. Suddenly, the screens began to flicker. A woman stepped forward. Vivian, wearing a simple gray dress and with no makeup or special introduction. She connected a drive to the projector, and the room fell silent. Documents appeared on the screen. Evidence of tax fraud, fabricated charities, and records of bribes emerged. Years of revelations about Carlyle surfaced. It was undeniable. Speaking with a steady, unwavering voice, she declared, "I was the daughter of Charles Lancaster, the man you had killed. You took my family, my home, my sister." She explained her previous silence, stating, "Because sometimes silence is the loudest scream." The displays showed Charles and Gwen's past articles. Headlines detailed Carlyle's corruption, his handwriting appearing in the margins, providing proof of his involvement in covering up their wrongdoing. A wave of gasps rippled through the audience, quickly turning into shouts as Vivian's voice resonated, identifying him as her father. Richard's hand holding his cigar trembled, the dark history of his empire exposed, every concealed payment surfacing as specters threatening to overwhelm him. Victoria's luxurious silk robe appeared diminished as she watched. The maid she'd soaked was revealed to be the daughter of one of their victims, her presence a reflection they were powerless to destroy. Brooke's image of Vivian's wet uniform briefly filled her thoughts. A shocking revelation now turned against them, the truth a sudden and impactful disclosure that left them stunned. The onlookers gasped, cameras clicking. Richard's cigar dropped, Victoria's pearls were gripped tightly, Brooke's smirk vanished. Proof accumulated, offshore accounts, forged signatures, and a hit order from 1998 with Richard's initials. Vivian spoke calmly, without triumph, simply presenting the facts. Her brown eyes met theirs, and the situation quickly descended into disarray. Journalists surged forward, yelling questions. Is this true? Who is she? The Carlyles protested. Lies.
Fabrication.
But the proof was undeniable. 6 years of Vivian's work, each file a devastating piece of evidence. Richard's expression contorted as Vivian's evidence appeared on the screens, his cigar falling as he understood that every dollar he'd pursued was insignificant compared to her vast holdings. He had spent money on a woman who could have financed his existence 100 times over, and now he had lost everything. A photograph of Lily appeared next, Vivian's sister, young and smiling, then a death certificate confirmed an accidental fall, followed by payroll records listing her as their maid, the dates corresponding with Mia's birth. The audience fell silent, then reacted strongly as Vivian indicated Mia, saying, "She's my niece. Your angel was my blood." Victoria's insincere tears from press conferences seemed bitter. Her prized child exposed as a falsehood she's previously displayed, now a burden upon her. Brooke's self-satisfied grin from presenting Mia at galas disappeared. She had mocked the aunt while cuddling the niece, and the room's cheers drowned her out. Vivian's truth, a blade, shattered their facade. Victoria's pearls snapped in her grip, her sobs choked by the revelation that the maid she demeaned possessed more than her dreams. Her dynasty crumbled under Vivian's quiet hand. Brooke's heels wobbled as she stared, her smirk a distant memory. Nova Link's billions rendered her $500 million a child's game, and the press swarmed. Her downfall played out for the world to see. Their greed had blinded them, and Vivian's justice cut deeper than any blade, their empire dust at her feet. Then came the surprising development. Nova Link is pulling out, Vivian said matter-of-factly. Oh, and I own it. Every cent. Nova Link's logo flashed prominently, a corporate powerhouse Vivian had created, its billions displayed in real time, overshadowing the Carlyles' modest fortune as the press announced. She owns it all. Richard's $500 million deal disintegrated into nothing. He had pleaded with someone he had previously ridiculed, his cigar a prop in a performance she had crafted. Victoria's shriek cut through the air. That's impossible, she exclaimed. But the figures were undeniable. Her maid's assets resembled a vast wave eroding their inheritance. Brooke's heels clicked as she retreated, her aspirations for the boardroom a dream against Vivian's actuality. The audience's applause a tribute to her unspoken authority. Their ruin a melody they were powerless to silence. Richard's jaw fell.
Victoria gasped.
Brooke's eyes widened as if struck. Vivian's substantial wealth, amounting to billions, a truly immense fortune, made their $500 million deal seem insignificant. The room felt unstable. Their empire appeared to be crumbling. Police lights flashed outside within hours, assets were frozen, and warrants were issued. The guards advanced, their uniforms sharp, their expressions impassive. Vivian's network, cultivated over years, now positioned itself around her as the screens displayed security logs revealing their identities, exposing her 6-year strategic plan. Richard shouted, "You work for me." But they remained unmoved, one quietly saying, "Not anymore, sir." The feeling of betrayal felt like a knife twisting inside him. Victoria's suggestion to dismiss Vivian seemed like a cruel jest now. She had entrusted her position to a woman who had already established a claim. Brooke's outburst, "She's nothing," faded as the crowd voiced Vivian's name, her quiet ascent to power a triumph they could not seize, their authority diminished by the servant they had attempted to suppress. Richard shouted into a phone, "Correct this." But his legal team was already arranging their departure. Victoria wept, "We are destroyed." Brooke attempted to leave unnoticed, but reporters prevented her, her heels now ineffective. The guards, Vivian's guards, maintained their positions, devoted to her, not to them. Mia ran to Vivian, embracing her leg, and Vivian crouched down, whispering, "You are safe now." The Carlyles were unaware that Mia was Lily's daughter, unaware that Vivian had outmaneuvered them all. The consequences arrived quickly. Inquiries swept through Carlyle assets, revealing tax evasion, fraud, and connections to murder. Richard was arrested. Victoria relinquished her philanthropic endeavors. Brooke's reputation as a socialite disintegrated. Their estate plunged into darkness, gates secured, a lasting symbol of avarice. Vivian didn't accept a single dollar. She presented the proof, departed without stain. She upheld her sister's pledge. Shield Mia, reveal the corruption. No acclaim, no dominion, solely justice, serene and stark. Several weeks elapsed. Vivian stood on a rural highway, Mia holding her hand. No expansive residence, no protectors, just a modest garment and a child mirroring Lily's expression. They headed towards a modest dwelling, unassuming and tranquil, hers. Vivian's victory required no fanfare. She had overcome them through perseverance, kindness, and a keen intellect surpassing their strength. As the sun descended, Mia released a joyful laugh, finally liberated. Often, those who appear reserved can dismantle even the most powerful structures. If this narrative resonated with you, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing for more content. The moment she entered the publishing office, she was dismissed. Her coat was of frayed wool, her shoes worn, and she held a thick manuscript bound with tape, the pages already yellowing. The receptionist scrutinized her, raising an eyebrow as if detecting an unpleasant odor. "You're here to submit a story? Handwritten?" An editor, with slicked-back hair, barely glanced at the title before laughing. "A boy wizard living under the stairs? This seems like a low-budget Tolkien adaptation." The room erupted in laughter. A staffer even picked up the manuscript, displayed it, and quipped, "Another legend, handwritten, ideal for the recycling bin." Then they threw it directly in front of her. Emily knelt, recovered her manuscript, carefully smoothed a torn corner, and turned away, refusing to lower her head. She offered only a small nod, as if they were the ones being turned down. They simply didn't understand. What they discarded would become a literary phenomenon for an entire generation. And the woman they just mocked would reshape the world. Emily Brooks resided in a small flat above a bustling chip shop in London, a dwelling characterized by the scent of grease, and a radiator that rattled like it was performing for a horror film. She was 31, a single mother to a 6-year-old daughter Lily, who slept on a mattress in the corner while Emily wrote at a shaky kitchen table. Each day began at dawn, balancing toast and crayons for Lily, followed by a quick trip to drop her off at school before going to the cafe close to King's Cross Station. The cafe was a somewhat run-down establishment with greasy food, chipped mugs, and a jukebox that had been broken since the 90s. Despite its appearance, it served as her sanctuary. There, in a corner booth, she would open her notebook and write, her pen creating a world where a boy named Harry Potter lived under a staircase, dreaming of magic. Her attire was unassuming, a pale sweater, a skirt mended at the bottom, shoes so dilapidated that the soles detached during rain. Her dark hair was frequently disheveled, secured with a rubber band, with strands escaping as if possessing a will of their own. She remained indifferent. She wasn't writing to gain recognition. She was writing for Lily, for herself, for the children she observed at the library who possessed only stories to find solace in. The manuscript, Harry Potter and the Glass Owl, represented her deepest emotions, a story of a boy who was overlooked, who discovered magic in a world that disregarded him, who ultimately chose to believe in himself. Each word was meticulously handwritten, each page a testament to her dedication, with pages taped together after the binding failed. Emily submitted it to 12 publishers. She had spent her remaining £20 on postage, carefully wrapping each copy in brown paper, her hands trembling as she closed the envelopes. She hadn't anticipated a positive response, merely an opportunity, but the rejections arrived quickly, each one sharply disappointing. "Do not attempt to write fantasy if you lack understanding of the world," one letter stated, bearing the signature of a senior editor at Crownwell Press, Martin Hale. "A woman writing magic? No thank you," another declared, the words written in red ink by a junior editor named Clara Voss. A note, "This tone belongs in a child's after-school diary, not a bookstore," came from someone at Regent House. It was written by Simon Trent, a literary agent. His name was stamped in gold on the letterhead. Emily read each one quietly, keeping her face calm. Then she put them away in a drawer. She didn't cry. She returned to the cafe and continued writing. While at a local bookshop where Emily occasionally looked at books, she overheard a literary scout from Pinnacle Books, Clara Voss, talking with the owner. "You won't believe the audacity of this woman," Clara stated, her voice laced with disdain. "Some single mom, appearing disheveled, believes she's created wizardry. I instructed my team to discard it to prevent it from consuming more space." The owner laughed, briefly looking at Emily, who was examining a used paperback nearby, oblivious to being discussed. "Likely another sentimental narrative seeking sympathy," he remarked, speaking loudly enough for her to overhear. A customer interjected, a smirk playing on his face. "What's she going to do? Cast a spell to get published?" The others chuckled, glances darting towards Emily's worn skirt and unkempt hair. She remained looking down, her fingers following the book's spine, but the atmosphere shifted, their comments a burden she carried as she returned to her cafe booth. Her pen wavered a little as she wrote, yet she persisted. Her story would be her reply. Emily was seated in her cafe booth on a rainy afternoon, her notebook open, when a group of publishing interns from Regent House entered, their laughter echoing through the space. One noticed her and nudged his friends, saying, "Look, it's the wizard lady, still writing her kitty stories." He approached her, peering at her pages and asking, "What's this, Harry, what's it? Gonna make you rich, huh, love?" His friends laughed, and one mimicked her pen strokes with exaggerated flourishes. "Bet she thinks bookstores are begging for this drivel," another remarked, speaking loud enough for other patrons to hear. A waitress, joining in the derision, placed Emily's coffee down with force, adding, "Dreamers like you clog up the place." The interns quickly took a selfie with her visible in the background and posted it online with the caption, "Hatch fantasy fail. Single mom's sad hobby." Emily's hand paused, ink smudging slightly, but her face remained composed, her gaze fixed on the page. The cafe felt smaller, their unkindness a storm she endured quietly, her story her only support. The most difficult experience came from Crownwell Press. Emily had found the strength to hand-deliver her manuscript in person, hoping a direct meeting might influence them. She stood in their modern office, all glass and chrome, holding her pages. Martin Hale, the editor who had rejected her by mail, was present, accompanied by assistants. He glanced at her worn coat and smirked. An unfamiliar woman, appearing like a housewife, who believes she's crafting the next mythology. Absurd. He didn't bother to open the manuscript. Instead, he raised it with 2 fingers, as if it were unclean, and dropped it into a recycling bin. His assistants chuckled, one saying, "Back to the kitchen, love." Emily crouched, recovered her pages, and departed silently. Her quietness wasn't surrender, it was resistance, a pledge to her story. Leaving Crownwell Press, Emily held her manuscript securely. A group of assistants trailed her to the elevator, their laughter bouncing off the hallway walls. One, a young woman wearing a designer scarf, remarked, "Hey housewife, perhaps stick to knitting next time. Writing is best left to the professionals." Another playfully imitated her walk, emphasizing the movement of her worn shoes, while a third took a photograph and shared it online with the caption, "Delusional wannabe attempts to enter the publishing world epic fail." The elevator doors shut, but their laughter persisted, clear and unwavering. Emily stood within, her reflection barely visible on the metallic surfaces, her expression calm but her fingers pressed tightly around her papers. Outside, a person on the sidewalk recognized her from the online post and gestured, saying to a companion, "That's the woman who believed she could create a bestseller." The urban environment appeared to taunt her, each look a reminder of her disappointment. Still, she continued walking, her quietness a defense, her narrative complete. Following the receipt of another rejection notice, Emily went to Pinnacle Books to make her appeal, her manuscript held securely. Clara Voss greeted her in the entrance hall, her red heels striking the floor with a sharp sound. "You again?" Clara said sharply, observing Emily's mended sweater. "I told you nobody desires your small magic story." She summoned coworkers, her tone derisive. "This is the one who believes she's the upcoming sensation, a single mother with a fairy tale." Laughter filled the air. One assistant discarded a crumpled coffee cup towards a bin close to Emily, and smiled when it brushed her arm. "Oops, thought you'd catch it with a spell," he remarked, winking at Clara. A security guard who overheard joined in, saying, "Time to go, lady, don't waste their time." Clara dismissed him with a wave, already turning away. Stick to raising your kid, not writing flops. She called out, her words reverberating through the lobby with the sound of snickers. Emily departed, her gait resolute, her manuscript intact, yet the impact of their remarks lingered, a chilling dampness. Several months elapsed, and Emily's finances decreased. She reduced her food intake to purchase Lily new shoes, while her own coat became increasingly worn as winter's chill intensified. She was nearing the end of her resources when a letter arrived from Willow Tree Press, a small publisher struggling to stay afloat in a basement office. The owner, Margaret Cole, was direct. The situation is precarious, your book presents a risk, but I find it promising. We'll print 1,000 copies, conditional on using initials, ensuring anonymity. No one should know the author is a woman. Emily paused, her pen poised over the contract. She was reluctant to conceal her identity, but Lily needed school supplies, and the flat's rent was overdue. She signed as E.J. Brooks. Harry Potter and the Glass Owl was released in June, a subtle distribution in a few London bookshops. The cover was simple, just a drawing of an owl with glass wings, the title in a small font, understated and without promotion. Emily didn't anticipate much. She continued working, taking shifts at a laundromat to make ends meet, writing at the cafe when she had time. However, then something changed. A public school in Leeds sent her a letter, handwritten by a teacher named Ms. Patel. It read, "We read your book to our class. The children haven't stopped discussing Harry. They cried when he found the glass owl. Thank you." Emily clutched the letter, her throat constricted, and placed it with her other rejection notices. When Harry Potter and the Glass Owl was initially released, it was a quiet debut amidst a flurry of well-established titles. However, it quickly gained momentum. A bookshop in Glasgow organized a reading, and children filled the space, captivated as Harry confronted the Shadow Veil. Parents shared accounts of nightly readings, their voices hushed with wonder. My daughter hadn't engaged with a book in years. Now she refuses to put Harry Potter and the Glass Owl down. By August, London's biggest bookstore saw a line extending out the door, with children holding copies and reciting Harry's spells as if they were a hidden language. A video that became widely shared online featured a boy in Sydney imitating the glass owl's flight, his cardboard wings flapping energetically. News publications described it as a sensation arising unexpectedly. Emily's World, Hogwarts's candlelit halls, the owl's shimmering prophecy, was more than just a story. It provided a sense of belonging for those often disregarded. The book gained widespread recognition, each copy reflecting her unwavering spirit. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause, acknowledging the world's discovery of her. News of the book's popularity quickly circulated. A teacher in Manchester read excerpts aloud, and her students created drawings of Harry's wand, affixing them to their desks. A librarian in Bristol placed an order for 10 additional copies following disputes among children vying for the sole existing copy. A blogger, identified as Katie, a young person, shared a quote online. "The boy who wasn't chosen, chose himself." It received 100 likes, then 1,000, then 10,000. By September, bookshops were unable to maintain sufficient inventory. Parents described it as magical. Children claimed it as their own. A photograph circulated widely online, depicting a girl in a hospital bed, clutching Harry Potter, smiling for the first time in weeks. Emily viewed it on a library computer and wiped her eyes, her heart full. By autumn, Harry Potter and the Glass Owl was no longer simply a book, it was a cultural phenomenon. Schools throughout Britain designated it required reading. Researchers observed a remarkable shift. Children who previously showed little interest in reading eagerly finished Harry's story. A Paris library reported wait lists extending for months, with teenagers drawing the glass owl in their notebooks. In Chicago, a community center hosted a themed event, where families dressed as wizards, their laughter resonating through the streets. Social media platforms were filled with shared quotes. The boy who was not initially selected ultimately asserted himself. Artwork appeared on bedroom walls, and phrases were permanently marked on wrists. A Tokyo newsstand sold out within hours. The clerk remarked, "It's like Harry is real." Emily's narrative had cast a spell, its influence extending across borders, giving a voice to those who were unheard. Bookstores requested additional printings, their shelves emptied, as readers sent a large number of letters to Willow Tree Press. Demands for more Harry were constant. The world wasn't simply reading, it was experiencing her dream, and the audience felt each triumph personally. 3 months following its release, the book became incredibly popular. It reached the bestseller lists initially in the UK, then in America and subsequently in Japan. News outlets proclaimed headlines, with considerable intrigue surrounding author E.J. Brooks's reimagining of fantasy. Bookstores experienced sellout conditions, placing reprint orders numbering in the thousands. Willow Tree Press, rescued from bankruptcy, relocated to a more suitable office. Margaret Cole contacted Emily, her voice trembling, stating, "We're printing 1 million copies." "1 million? Who are you?" Emily chuckled quietly, still wearing her worn coat, replying, "Just a mom who enjoys telling stories." As winter approached, Harry Potter and the Glass Owl became a source of hope. Marketers and deli shops organized midnight releases, with children chanting Harry's name under lantern light. A Brazilian orphanage shared a story of children pooling coins to purchase a shared copy, reading by flashlight after curfew. Numerous fan letters were sent to Willow Tree Press, including drawings of Hogwarts, poems about the Glass Owl, and stories of overcoming bullies, inspired by Harry. A London theatre adapted the story, selling out weeks in advance, with the audience weeping as Harry's wand lit the stage. Critics who initially dismissed the work now acknowledged its merit, with one reviewer stating that Brooks had created a myth possessing an enduring quality. The book's impact extended beyond the written word, inspiring bravery and igniting imaginations. From Moscow to Mexico City, readers displayed owl pins, a subtle reference to Emily's universe. Her narrative overcame skepticism, its popularity a recognition she did not actively pursue, and the audience reveled in its brilliance. The National Literary Gala, the publishing world's equivalent of the Oscars, took place at the Savoy Hotel, filled with crystal chandeliers and formal black tie attire. Emily received an invitation, not as a typical attendee, but as the guest of honor. She nearly declined to attend. Lily was suffering from a cold, and the train ticket to central London was costly, but Margaret urged her to go, sending a ticket and a note that read, "You deserve this." Emily chose to wear a plain linen dress, pale blue in color, which she had purchased from a charity shop for $5. The shoes were the familiar, well-worn pair, her hair loose and slightly disheveled. She carried her notebook, prepared for any sudden inspiration during the train ride. The gala presented a spectacle of tailored suits and glittering gowns, the atmosphere heavy with champagne and self-importance. Emily entered discreetly, her invitation clutched firmly, initially unnoticed by the attendees. She positioned herself near a pillar, observing editors and agents exchange greetings, their laughter reminiscent of the Crownwell office. Martin Hale was present, networking while holding a glass of whiskey, his slicked-back hair reflecting the light. Clara Voss, representing Pinnacle Books, commanded attention in a red dress, casually dismissing a waiter with a gesture. Simon Trent, the Regent House agent, spoke proudly of his newest acquisition, his voice audible above the general conversation. They did not notice Emily as she passed, her linen dress seeming understated amidst their elegant attire. She greeted several publishers with a handshake, her grip steady but kind. Martin Hale casually touched her hand, his gaze already searching for someone of greater significance. He offered a greeting, stating, "Nice to meet you," without inquiring about her name, and concluded with, "Enjoy the evening." Clara Voss responded with a strained smile, quietly remarking to an assistant, "Who's that? Some blogger?" Simon Trent remained engrossed in his phone, not acknowledging her at all. Emily offered a courteous nod, her expression calm, and proceeded. She didn't require their validation. She had come for the children who adored Harry, for Lily, for the narrative that continued to endure. A palpable excitement filled the room as the host, a BBC presenter known for his smooth delivery, stepped onto the stage. "Tonight, we celebrate the literary world's most accomplished talents," he began, his smile radiant. But he continued, noting that one name had eclipsed all others. A debut novel, published under initials, had resonated with readers worldwide. It had revolutionized storytelling, provided children with a role model, and rescued a publisher from financial hardship. The audience shifted expectantly, murmuring, "Could it possibly be E.J. Brooks? Here?" Martin Hale straightened his tie, a smirk directed at Clara Voss. "Likely an Oxbridge graduate pretending to be modest," he remarked. Clara acknowledged him with a roll of her eyes. The host's voice increased in volume. "Please welcome the author of the decade's best-selling novel, the woman who created an entire world for millions of children, Emily Brooks." The ballroom became still. Glasses tapped, breathing paused. Emily advanced, her linen dress reflecting the light, her well-worn shoes making no sound on the polished floor. Strands of hair remained tangled, and her notebook was held beneath her arm. Yet, her eyes, steady, warm, and resolute, commanded the attention of everyone present. She ascended the stage, each step carefully placed, as if Hogwarts itself provided support. Martin Hale's whiskey spilled from his hand, staining his shoes. Clara Voss's red dress appeared to constrict, her face losing color. Simon Trent's phone fell onto the table, his earlier claim overlooked. The audience was quiet, a multitude of astonished expressions as Emily arrived at the podium. She placed her notebook down, her fingers lightly touching the aged cover, and gazed out at the room. When she spoke, her voice was distinct and measured, resembling an incantation being spoken. "You dismissed the story before you proceeded to the next page. Now the entire world is reading it." The room fell silent. Emily did not elevate her tone, nor did she direct accusations. She found no need to. Her words resonated as undeniable truths, precise and absolute. "I wrote Harry Potter and the Glass Owl for my daughter, for children who feel invisible, for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. You didn't see it, you didn't have to. The children did, they found Harry and he found them." She paused, her gaze sweeping the front row. Martin, Clara, Simon, all frozen. "This isn't about me, it's about a boy who chose himself, and the millions who chose him back." As Emily spoke from the gala stage, the crowd's silence broke into murmurs of awe. A children's librarian, positioned towards the rear, was the first to rise, applauding with great enthusiasm. "My students read Harry Potter nightly," she exclaimed, her voice filled with emotion. "They've begun writing their own stories thanks to you." The room shifted, faces expressing surprise, as others echoed her sentiment. A bookseller who had exhausted their stock in a few hours, and a parent whose previously timid son now embodied Harry's bravery. Emily's narrative had created a world so detailed it felt tangible, Harry's wand flickering under starlight, the glass owl's wings gleaming with mysteries. Her ability wasn't merely proficiency, it was transformation, converting sorrow into optimism. The applause intensified, a surge of admiration, as publishers who had disregarded her now rapidly wrote her name down, recognizing they had overlooked a brilliant talent. Emily remained there, her linen dress a focal point, her understated resilience more impactful than their applause. The applause began gradually, a gentle undulation that built into a powerful surge, shaking the chandeliers. It was more than mere courtesy, it was heartfelt and genuine. Emily moved from the stage, her dress flowing, and returned to her position beside the pillar. Behind the curtain, the gala was filled with discussion of Harry Potter and the Glass Owl. A critic, standing close to the bar, who had previously expressed doubts, confessed, "I read it last week and couldn't stop reading it." He continued, "The way Harry confronts the shadow veil. It's not just a story, it's a reflection for every child who's experienced feelings of isolation." A young author held her signed copy, telling a friend, "It's as if Emily understood my childhood, the bullies, the dreams, and transformed them into something magical." The book's world felt vibrant, Hogwarts halls resounding with spells, the Glass Owl's prophecy permeating every page, children in Tokyo dressed as Harry for Halloween, parents in New York reading it aloud, their voices breaking at the conclusion. Its language had initiated book clubs, inspired fan art, and even led to a school play in Dublin. Emily's story resonated deeply, its enchantment touching hearts across the globe. Attendees noticed her near the pillar, transformed from an unknown individual into an author whose writing had reshaped perception. During the gala, while Emily stood by her pillar, the book's reputation intensified. A bookseller confided in a critic, speaking with conviction, "I've sold thousands of books, but Harry Potter, it's truly exceptional. Children read it as if it were essential." On the other side of the room, a teacher described how her class constructed a cardboard Hogwarts, their faces glowing with pride. Enthusiasts had started a worldwide campaign, Read Like Harry, prompting libraries to increase their fantasy selections for children. Passages from the book, such as Harry's duel with the Frost Wraith and the Owl's whispered prophecy, were recited in classrooms, cafes, and even parliaments. A UN delegate confessed it influenced her speech on hope. Emily's impact resonated far beyond recognition. It was a transformative power, redefining perspectives on courage, loss, and love. From Cape Town, readers shared videos, celebrating with dances to Harry's theme, while New York's Times Square displayed the book's cover. The murmurings of the audience shifted to awe, their gaze fixed on Emily, now perceived as a mythmaker in a linen dress, her triumph a shared global victory. The host struggled to proceed, but their words fell on deaf ears. Attention remained on Emily, whispers circulating. "Is that her? She's E.J. Brooks? She authored that book?" Martin Hale slumped into his chair, his face ashen. Clara Voss held her clutch tightly, her smile vanished. Simon Trent looked at his phone, as if willing the moment to disappear. By morning, the consequences arrived quickly. Crownwell Press, Martin Hale's source of pride, encountered a public relations crisis. Blogs resurrected the recycling bin incident, and readers overwhelmed social media. Crownwell passed on Harry Potter.
Bileyim hale.
The board reduced his position to junior editor, his office relocated to a cubicle. The reputation of Clara Voss's pinnacle books suffered a significant blow when a leaked email revealed her no women note. Authors departed, and her newest fantasy series failed, derisively labeled "No Magic Here." Simon Trent's agency experienced a loss of clients following his boast about dismissing Emily's diary entries. His letterhead, embossed in gold, held no value now. His workspace was covered with manuscripts that hadn't sold. The publishing world reacted as Emily's triumph became apparent. Simon Trent, the agent who had previously dismissed Emily's diary entries, observed his agency collapse swiftly. Prominent authors distanced themselves, pointing to his perceived lack of foresight, as bookstores declined to stock his clients' titles, prioritizing displays for Harry Potter. His gold-stamped letterhead became a target for online ridicule, with memes labeling it the man who missed magic. Clara Voss's professional life suffered a dramatic downturn following the viral spread of her no women email. Pinnacle's share price decreased significantly, leading to her reassignment to editing cookbooks, her red dress now a source of regret. Even Martin Hale's reduction in role caused considerable distress. Rumors circulated among his colleagues regarding his mistake, and his electronic correspondence was flooded with negative feedback from readers. They had discarded Harry. Their pride had resulted in complete loss, their identities now minor references in Emily's celebrated story. Applause erupted as online platforms declared her the sovereign writer who crafted narratives with simplicity and honesty. Emily ignored the commotion. She was at the cafe, working on the next installment, her writing instrument moving while Lily played nearby. Willow Tree Press sent her a royalty payment. The prize provided enough for a larger apartment, a suitable bed for Lily, and a fresh notebook. She remained composed, silent in her triumph, and simply wrote, her story proving more resilient than their criticism. The world embraced Harry Potter, and Emily Brooks, the individual once dismissed as insignificant, evolved into a celebrated figure. This demonstrates the strength of a narrative that refuses to be silenced. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. The moment she entered the boardroom, she drew mocking looks. Her appearance, a crisp white shirt, beige wide-leg trousers, an old laptop, and a neat, half-up hairstyle, seemed to invite derision in a room dominated by Armani suits and Swiss watches, the occupants' gazes sharp and critical. Whispers arose, "Look at that outfit." Some even joked, someone must have sent the intern from the events team by mistake. They were mistaken, as the woman they had just humiliated was the spouse of the man overseeing a $100 million investment fund, and he had resolved that no money would be allocated to anyone who showed her disrespect. The boardroom at the top of the Sterling Tower shone with authority, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's skyline, a polished mahogany table reflecting the morning sun, and air that smelled faintly of leather and ambition. Crystalis Group, a leading force in luxury real estate, had requested architects from across the world to present proposals for their flagship project, a $2 billion eco-resort in the Maldives designed to reimagine sustainable luxury. Executives in tailored suits observed as evaluators, their cufflinks gleaming, their expressions conveying practiced indifference. Tablets displayed spreadsheets, and a large screen stood behind them, ready to showcase presentations that held the potential to significantly impact professional trajectories. Alina Moore entered through the double doors, her beige trousers swaying gently, her white shirt crisp and unadorned. Her dark hair was styled in a neat half-updo, with a few strands framing her face, and her hazel eyes held a quiet intensity. She carried a worn leather portfolio of hand-drawn sketches, an old laptop tucked under her arm, and she was unaccompanied. At 34, she appeared striking, elegant in her simplicity, her beauty like a clear stream cutting through stone. Years ago, her eco-resort concept, a small project in Costa Rica, had attracted attention within the industry, its quiet excellence discussed in design circles. That's why Crystalis had invited her, or so she believed. She placed her portfolio on the table, her actions measured, and offered a composed smile. "Good morning," she stated, her voice clear and even. "I'm Alina Moore, here to present my vision for your resort." The room showed little movement. A man in a charcoal suit, his tie a vibrant crimson, briefly looked up from his phone. Victor Crane, the project director, reclined, his expression wry. "We anticipated a design firm," he stated, his voice resonating, "not a Pinterest freelancer." A wave of laughter, frigid and precise, passed as executives subtly looked at each other. As Alina remained standing at the table, Victor Crane angled himself towards Sylvia Holt, his voice audible throughout the room. He stated, loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's got some nerve, showing up with a laptop older than my car." The executives laughed, their eyes showing their disapproval as they observed her adjusting her sketches. A man wearing a pinstripe suit threw a paper clip toward her portfolio, smiling as it landed on her drawings. "Decorate that," he said to the freelancer, which caused more laughter. Sylvia responded with a smirk, adding, "Maybe she's here to pitch a lemonade stand." Phones snapped pictures of her older laptop, accompanied by cruel whispers. She appeared to be mortifying herself. Alina's fingers hesitated, yet her face remained composed, her composure a sharp contrast to their hostility. Alina's expression remained unchanged. She presented her portfolio, displaying sketches filled with luminosity. Curved roofs, integrated with coral reefs, open-air villas touched by sea breezes. "My work speaks for itself," she stated, pushing a page towards Victor. He made no attempt to view it, his gaze focusing on her attire. "You honestly believe you can make a good impression on international investors dressed like that?" he stated. Sylvia Holt moved closer, her diamond earrings catching the light as she regarded Alina with a look of concern. "Darling, this is a global project," she explained, her voice conveying a sense of disappointment. "You can't simply appear like that." She indicated Alina's trousers, and a ripple of amusement spread around the table. "Did you even attempt to present a professional image?" A woman nearby scoffed, "She's giving garage sale vibes." As others filmed, their phones focused on Alina's flats. Sylvia continued, "We deal with titans, not hobbyists. Save us the slideshow." The room erupted, the applause laced with mockery as Alina opened her laptop, her movements calm, her silence a defense against their criticism. Another executive, a woman named Sylvia Holt with diamonds sparkling at her ears, sighed dramatically. "Let's not waste time, Victor. She's clearly out of her depth." A palpable change filled the room, their disapproval now felt tangible. A junior executive, Ethan Wells, his Rolex watch prominently displayed, leaned forward with a smirk. "What's with the second-hand style? Did you get that shirt from your mother?" Ethan Wells rose, his Rolex catching the light as he gestured towards Alina's sketches, his expression mocking. "What are these? Are these illustrations from a children's book?" he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've seen more impressive artwork at my child's preschool." The executives reacted with derision, one discarding a crumpled napkin towards her portfolio, exclaiming, "Frame that masterpiece." Ethan moved nearer, his voice laced with mockery, asking, "You believed you'd make an impression? Stick to knitting, sweetheart." Mobile phones were raised, documenting her blurred sketch, their laughter echoing as a unified sound. Alina's hand remained on her laptop, her expression resolute, yet the atmosphere became oppressive under their mockery, her dignity the focus of their amusement. A ripple of amusement, phones quietly raised, documented her simple trousers and worn flats. Alina remained still, her hands gently placed on her laptop, her eyes scanning the table. "None of you have examined my proposal," she stated, her voice calm, nearly soft. "You're evaluating me based on my appearance, not my abilities. You will later wish you had not." Victor's laughter was abrupt, like shattering glass. "Regret, dear, we don't wager on inexperienced individuals." He gestured dismissively, rejecting her sketches without looking at them. "Crystalis focuses on building empires, not small ventures. You have 5 minutes to present before we proceed to serious applicants." Sylvia smiled, tapping her pen, stressing the need for brevity, as qualified architects were awaiting review. The assembled group watched intently, anticipating a misstep, their murmurs reflecting skepticism. Alina nodded calmly and opened her laptop, the screen displaying a faint flicker due to its age. She commenced, her voice even, detailing a resort that integrated nature with luxury, solar lattices powering infinity pools, rainwater systems nourishing vertical gardens. Her sketches, displayed on the screen, were stunning, each line a tribute to the earth. However, the executives showed little interest. Ethan used his phone, Sylvia examined her nails, and Victor cut her off mid-presentation. "That's enough," he stated, his tone uninterested. "This is a dream, not a plan. We need scope, not artisanal details." As Alina started her pitch, the executives became more assertive, their comments blending into a harsh chorus. One woman, wearing a silk blazer, questioned, "Is she truly using that laptop?" It appeared antiquated, prompting gasps and laughter. A man carelessly discarded a sugar packet from the coffee tray, observing its descent near her drawings. "Add some style, dear," he taunted as others applauded, calling, "Go back to the suburbs." Smartphones captured everything, their cameras unforgiving, presenting Alina as naive. She continued speaking, her voice clear, but their taunts overwhelmed her, a group enjoying what they perceived as her failure. Alina's eyes momentarily shifted, but her demeanor remained steady, a restrained intensity visible within. The rejection was immediate and harsh. Sylvia moved closer, her smile malicious. "You do not meet our requirements, Alina. Perhaps consider a local community center in the future." Ethan laughed, throwing a pen in the direction of her sketches. "Yes, focus on decorating lofts. Leave resorts to professionals." The pen traveled across her portfolio, blurring a sketch, and the room erupted in laughter, their voices cutting. Alina shut her laptop, her actions deliberate, and collected her documents. She remained silent, showed no reaction. Her gaze met Victor's, calm yet intense, as if she could see into his thoughts. While she organized her belongings, a junior executive named Lila Chen, her suit impeccably tailored and her confidence even more so, interjected. "Frankly, it takes courage to present yourself this way," she commented, her tone laced with condescension. "However, courage doesn't secure deals. Presentation is key and you're falling short." Lila Chun crossed her arms, her suit crisp and her tone direct, addressing Alina as if she were a child. "Look," she said, her voice carrying and precise, "it's charming that you attempted this. But this is Crystalis, not a startup incubator. You don't belong here." She gestured at Alina's shirt, which drew amused laughter. "Next time, perhaps hire a stylist or engage a professional firm." A man called out, "Or simply remain at home." His companions chuckled, one flicking a straw wrapper toward her table. Recycle that pitch, he called, and the room immediately filled with noise. Alina carefully collected her sketches, her actions deliberate. However, their unkindness lingered, their phones sharing her embarrassment. She indicated Alina's clothing, which prompted further laughter. A man positioned at the table's far end, with his tie slightly undone, exclaimed, "Wager she's here for the complimentary coffee." The room erupted in laughter. Their phones were now recording, capturing her old laptop and a sketch with smudges, portraying her as an object of ridicule. Alina rose, her portfolio held securely, and offered a quiet smile. "Thank you for your time," she said, her voice soft but resonant. She retrieved her phone, her fingers steady, and initiated the call. The room grew quieter, the occupants observing despite their attempts at nonchalance. "Honey," she said, her tone warm yet distinct, "they disapproved of my design. Perhaps I ought to present it to Novaland instead." She waited, paying attention to the response, then nodded. "All right, see you soon." The executives looked at one another, their expressions changing. Victor moved closer, his forehead creased. "Novaland," he stated, his voice sharp. "What's that supposed to mean?" Alina remained silent, her expression unchanged, as she placed her phone into her pocket. The boardroom doors opened, and a man entered, tall and impeccably dressed in a black suit tailored to perfection. His dark hair was neatly swept back, and his gray eyes surveyed the room with a predator's calm. This was Julian Sterling, the billionaire founder of Sterling Ventures, a $100 million fund capable of influencing markets with minimal effort. A palpable shift in the atmosphere signaled his arrival. Julian moved with purpose, traversing the room without a sound, disregarding the expressions of the executives. His gaze settled on Alina, briefly displaying warmth, and he halted near her, his hand lightly touching hers. The room fell silent, pens clattering to the floor, tablets left untouched. Victor's smirk disappeared, his complexion losing color. Sylvia's diamonds appeared lackluster, her assurance faltering. Julian's phone fell from his grasp, striking the table with a sharp sound. Julian addressed the room, his voice low and resonant, like a storm. "I've decided to invest only in companies that treat my wife with respect," he stated. "You just lost your opportunity." A heavy silence fell over the room, followed by a sudden uproar. Victor rose quickly, stammering, "Mr. Sterling, we didn't know." Sylvia interrupted, her voice sharp. "This is a misunderstanding." Ethan appeared flustered. "We were simply being honest." Julian did not acknowledge them. His gaze remained fixed on Alina, who stood calmly, her portfolio still held in her arms. She didn't need to say anything. Her mere presence was sufficient, a silent strength that revealed their harshness. Phones vibrated, screens illuminating as an email arrived in every inbox at the table. The subject line was striking. Novaland secures exclusive contract with Alina Moore. The message itself was concise and impactful. Novaland, Crystallis Group's fiercest rival, had unexpectedly exited the Maldives bidding process, adopting Alina's design as their premier project. Her sketches, which had been ridiculed only moments earlier, now formed the core of a $2 billion agreement, fully supported by Sterling Ventures. All attention shifted to Alina, with expressions of surprise, remorse, and apprehension visible on onlookers' faces. The boardroom erupted in disarray as Julian's words took effect, Victor's complexion paling, his crimson tie seeming to tighten. Phones vibrated with pressing calls, investors withdrawing funds, stocks decreasing 10% within minutes. Sylvia's diamonds shook as she hesitated, her tablet displaying postponed meetings, her connections dissolving. Ethan's Rolex appeared excessive, his confidence diminished as his firm's worth plummeted, rumors of audits spreading. The Novaland email appeared more intensely, Alina's name now prominent, her sketches gaining popularity as brilliant. The Crystallis Empire, founded on presumption, fractured because of her understated honesty, their reputation lost due to their own actions. She advanced, her footfall soft on the marble floor, and confronted the room. "I did not come here seeking a contract," she stated, her voice composed and direct. "I came because I expected to be afforded professional courtesy." She hesitated, allowing the statement to resonate, her hazel eyes scanning the table. You decided to evaluate me based on my attire, not my abilities. That proved to be your error. Victor Crane stood, his crimson tie a sharp contrast as he waved Alina off, his voice carrying. We're done here, he declared, interrupting her pitch. You're wasting our time with this vision board nonsense. He smirked, indicating her portfolio. Take your drawings and leave. We require successful individuals, not fantasizers. The room erupted in applause, one executive calling out, consider a craft fair, as another playfully tossed a coffee stirrer at her laptop, adding, modernize that old machine. Derisive comments circulated quickly, broadcast on internal chats, dismissing her as unsuccessful. Alina shut her portfolio, maintaining a composed expression, though their derision felt like a sharp cut with each comment. She turned, carrying her portfolio, with Julian beside her, his hands offering support on her back. The executive team reacted with a flurry of activity, their voices merging. Victor called out, Alina, let's discuss this. Sylvia's heels tapped as she rose. We might change our decision. Alina proceeded without hesitation, offering no farewell. The doors shut definitively behind her, the sound echoing like a conclusive judgment. The boardroom remained in a state of chaos, Crystalis's future uncertain, and Crystalis stock dropped sharply within hours. News reports declared, blunder costs Crystalis $2 billion, board resigns. As evening arrived, the executives confronted the consequences. Victor was removed from his position by the board, his reputation tarnished within real estate circles, his confident expression now a fading recollection. Sylvia's firm terminated her contract, clients referencing questionable decision-making. Her diamonds were pawned by the end of the month. Lila's startup pitch was rejected, investors withdrawing support following the widespread dissemination of videos showcasing her insults. Ethan's hedge fund failed, his Rolex sold to settle outstanding debts. The hashtag erased Ethan gained worldwide popularity. Their mistreatment of Alina, initially a source of amusement, ultimately led to their downfall, with each individual now associated with her success, and her vision becoming a guiding light for Novaland's ascent. Several individuals withdrew, board members submitted their resignations, and the Maldives project, formerly envisioned as their lasting achievement, ultimately became Novaland's success. Alina and Julian entered the elevator, the cityscape extending beneath them. He regarded her, his voice low, you all right? She returned a smile, her eyes reflecting the light, always. No further explanation was necessary. Their connection, subtle yet resolute, conveyed more than any agreement ever could. The elevator moved downwards, creating a sense of disorientation, Crystalis's descent resonating, Alina's perception growing stronger, her reality a clear and undeniable force. If this narrative evoked an emotional response, please leave a comment, and subscribe for further content.